was one of those mornings where everything felt slightly off-kilter. The kind of morning where the coffee tastes a little different, the air tastes a little thicker, and reality seems to bend at the edges. As I sat in my recliner, cradling my mug and trying to shake off the remnants of sleep, I saw my boyfriend, Jake, walk by in his work clothes, heading toward the bathroom. "Good morning," I called out, but he didn't respond. Maybe he didn't hear me, or perhaps he was in one of those pre-coffee grumpy moods. I shrugged it off and sipped my coffee, letting the warm sip into my bones. A few minutes later, I heard the front door open. Jake walked back into the house, his face a mix of frustration and haste. He had his phone in hand, clearly had forgotten something. I watched as he headed toward the bedroom again, but something was wrong. He was wearing a completely different outfit than he had just moments before. My mind was racing, trying to piece together with incongruity. "Jake, you were just in the bedroom, weren't you?" I asked, my voice tinged with confusion. He paused, giving me a puzzled look. No, I was outside cleaning the car. I forgot my phone," he said, holding it up as evidence. "But I just saw you walk by in different clothes," I stammered, my grip tightening on my coffee mug. Jake frowned, clearly trying to understand what I was saying. "Babe, I haven't been inside since I left. Maybe you were just seeing something." I wanted to believe him, but unease gnawed at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I finished my coffee, trying to rationalize what I had just seen. Maybe it was a trick of the light, or perhaps my sleep-deprived brain was playing tricks on me. The day passed in a blur of mundane tasks and work obligations, but the morning's events lingered at the back of my mind. By the time evening rolled around, I was eager to put the whole thing behind me. Jake and I settled on the couch and watched a movie, hoping to unwind and forget about the odd start of our day. But as the night wore on, the sense of unease only grew. I found myself glancing toward the bedroom, half expecting to see Jake walk by in a different outfit again. It wasn't until we were getting ready for bed that I finally decided to bring it up again. "Jake, about this morning, it really freaked me out," I admitted as we climbed into bed. "I know what I saw." He turned to me, his expression softening. "I don't know what to tell you. I mean, maybe it was just a weird coincidence or something. Better not to dwell on it, okay?" I nodded, but feeling uneasy. I drifted off to sleep, hoping that a good night's rest would help me clear my mind. The next morning, I woke up feeling more refreshed than unsettled, but still a bit uneasy. Jake had already left for work. I found myself alone with my thoughts. I decided to shake off the lingering dread by going for a run. The crisp morning air helped clear my mind, and by the time I returned home, I felt a bit more grounded. As I walked through the front door, I noticed something odd. Jake's work boots were by the door, but they were muddy, as if he had been outside in the rain. But it hadn't rained in days. I frowned, trying to make sense of it. The day passed uneventfully, but the mystery of the muddy boots and strange outfit change gnawed at me. That evening, as Jake and I sat down for dinner, I decided to confront him again. "Jake, something weird is going on. Your boots were muddy this morning, and it hadn't rained in days. And the outfit thing, I just can't ignore it." He looked at me, his brow furrowing in concern. "I don't know what to say, babe. Maybe you're overthinking things, but let's just try to relax and maybe not stress about it." I wanted to believe that, but the pieces just weren't adding up. And we were settling in for another night. I just couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just beneath the surface. That night I had a dream. I was back in the recliner sipping my coffee, and Jake walked by in his work clothes again. But this time, he stopped and looked at me, his eyes filled with an eerie intensity. "You're not supposed to see this," he said, his voice low and unsettling. I jolted awake, heart pounding. My room was dark and silent, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I glanced over at Jake, who was sleeping peacefully beside me. The next morning, I woke up, determined to get to the bottom of the mystery. As I sat in my recliner, coffee in hand, I saw Jake walk by again. My heart raced, but this time, I followed him. He headed toward the bedroom just like before. "Jake," I called out, but he didn't respond. I watched as he walked through the bedroom door, and I followed him steps behind. But when I reached the bedroom, it was empty. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned around, only to find Jake standing behind me, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. "What's going on?" he asked. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I saw you walk into the bedroom, but you weren't there. And this happened before. I don't know what's happening, but it's freaking me out." Jake looked at me, his eyes searching in mine. "Look, I believe you, okay?" he said softly. "Maybe there's something more going on here." We spent the next few days trying to piece together the mystery. We researched everything from sleepwalking to parallel universes, and nothing seemed to fit. It was only then that we decided to explore the house for something. Upon looking into the attic, it was then that we stumbled upon an old journal hidden in the attic that we finally found at least some answers. The journal belonged to the previous owner of the house, a man named Henry who had experienced similar strange occurrences. His writings detailed sightings of his own doppelganger with an eerie feeling of being watched. He believed that the house was built on a ley line, a place where boundaries between realities were thin. As we read through the journal, everything started to make sense, but also confused us at the same time. The strange outfit changes, the muddy boots, the feeling of being watched. It was all connected to the house and its unique location. With this newfound understanding, we decided to embrace the mystery rather than fear it. We learned to live with the occasional oddity, and in time, the strange occurrences became less frequent. Our love for each other grew stronger as we faced the unknown together, finding comfort in the fact that we weren't alone. Living in a small town in Oregon, I always felt secure. It was the kind of place where nobody locked their cars or houses. Life was slow, safe, and predictable, until the day my wallet disappeared. It had been sitting on my nightstand, and I tore my room apart looking for it. Nothing. I chalked it up to my absent-mindedness and tried to move on. Weeks later, I was getting ready for bed when I noticed a note in the bathroom, written in a cutesy font with little spirals around where the words were, "Mike says hello." At first, I didn't think much of it. One of my roommates, Sarah, always had friends over, so I figured it was just a playful note from one of them. I shrugged it off and went to bed. A week passed, and curiosity got the better of me. I asked Sarah if anyone knew someone named Mike. She looked at me puzzled and said, "No, I thought it was one of your friends. I don't know anyone named Mike." Her response sent a chill down my spine. If it wasn't a friend, then who had been in the house? 2 days later, around midnight, I stepped outside to smoke a cigarette. The air was crisp, and the street was empty, except for a shadowy figure standing across the road, staring straight at me. My heart started to race. I took a few steps forward and shouted, Hey, who are you?" The figure didn't respond, but instead turned around and walked away into darkness. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. On a hunch, I decided to check on the grill in the backyard. I rarely used it, but something told me to look inside. Lifting the lid, my jaw dropped. Sitting there neatly in the center was my wallet, completely untouched. I had used the grill since losing my wallet. How had it gotten there? From that day on, I started locking the doors, but the unease lingered. I kept replaying the events in my head. The missing wallet, the strange note, the staring figure, the reappearance of my wallet. It all felt connected. I decided to dig deeper. I began by asking around town for any unusual occurrences. It was then that I heard about Mike. He had been a resident of our town, a regular guy, until he vanished one day without a trace. The police had no leads, and his disappearance remained a mystery. The more I learned, the more it felt like that his disappearance and my experiences were connected. One night I was in the kitchen, and I heard a soft knock at the door. I peeked through the window and saw a middle-aged woman standing on the porch. Cautiously, I opened the door. "Are you Alex?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yeah, that's me. Who are you?" I replied, equally cautious. "My name is Karen. I'm Mike's sister. I think you might be in danger." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I invited her in and we sat down at the kitchen table. Karen explained that Mike had been investigating a series of strange events in town before he disappeared. He believed someone was watching him, and shortly before he vanished, he left a note for Karen saying, "If something happens to me, tell Alex." "But why me?" I asked. She claimed that she didn't know. She said that she found my address in his things, and thinking that it might have been a warning for me. As Karen spoke, pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Mike had been onto something, or someone, and now that person was targeting me. But why? I needed answers. Over the next few days, I started noticing things around the house. Small items were moved, doors left ajar, the feeling of being watched. I knew I had to confront whoever was behind this. I set up a camera in the living room, hoping to catch the intruder. One night, I was reviewing the footage. Then I saw it. A man, tall and thin, entered the house through the back door. He moved with a disturbing familiarity, as if he knew the layout of our home. He stopped in front of the camera, looked directly into it, and mouthed the words, "Mike says hello." I called the police, showing them the footage. They took the report seriously and started an investigation, but the intruder remained elusive. One evening, I got a call from an unknown number. A deep voice on the other side said, "Meet me at the old factory outside of town if you want answers." The line went dead. I knew it was risky, but I had to go. I drove to the factory, my heart pounding. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. As I stepped deeper into the shadows, a figure emerged. "Who are you?" I demanded. The man stepped out of the light, revealing a scarred face. "My name is Sam. Mike was my partner. We were investigating a corrupt group of individuals in this town. They took Mike when he got too close. And now they're after you." "Why didn't you go to the police?" I asked. "They have connections everywhere. Trust no one," Sam warned. "Mike left clues for you. Find them, and you'll uncover the truth." With Sam's help, I began to piece together Mike's investigation. We discovered that the town's seemingly perfect facade hid a dark secret, a network of corruption involving prominent town members. The final clue led us to a hidden room in the basement of Town Hall. Inside, we found documents detaining illegal activities and evidence that linked back to the powerful individuals in town. We had enough to expose them. With the evidence in hand, we went to state authorities. The ensuing investigation led to arrests and a massive cleanup of the town's corrupt elements. In the aftermath, I reflected on how my safe, predictable life had been shattered, only to reveal the truth underneath the surface. Mike's disappearance had not been in vain. His determination had discovered a web of lies, and his clues led me to the truth. As I stood on my porch, watching the sunset, I felt a sense of closure. The town was safer now.
I didn't mean to kill her. Not at first, anyway. But that's what happened. A moment of jealousy, a heated argument, and suddenly everything I had worked for was in danger. Zara West was the biggest influencer in the city. A flawless beauty with millions of followers. We were neck and neck, competing for the same deals, the same sponsorships, the same followers. But no matter what I did, Zara was always one step ahead. It was maddening. That night, when I cornered her in the stairwell after the event, I just wanted to scare her, make her back off. But she laughed at me. Laughed like I was nothing, a joke. That's when I shoved her, harder than I realized. I didn't see her head hit the concrete until it was too late. The pool of blood, the way her eyes fluttered shut. It was quick, like flipping a switch. No one ever suspected it was me. Zara had plenty of enemies. But I knew what I'd done. And someone else knew, too. Gerald, my creepy neighbor. He had always been lurking, watching me through his half-cracked door as I left for shoots, as I came back from events. I used to think he was just some sad, lonely guy, but he wasn't. He was worse. He was a vulture, circling above, waiting for his chance to feed. It was a month after Zara's death when the first note arrived. I know what you did. The words were scrawled in red ink, tucked under my door. My heart stopped when I read it. Who could possibly know? I had been so careful. There were no witnesses, no cameras. But then the second note came, and this time it was more specific. I saw you that night. You pushed her. Panic set in and I could barely breathe. Gerald knocked on my door that evening. A slow, deliberate knock that sent chills down my spine. I didn't want to open it, but I had no choice. He stood there, smiling, holding the note in his hand. "You've got a real problem on your hands," he said casually, leaning against the door frame like we were old friends. "Lucky for you, I'm a man who values discretion." What do you want?" I managed to ask, though my voice trembled. He didn't say money. That would have been too easy. Instead, he leaned in close, his breath hot and stale on my cheek. "You'll bring me something of yours once a week. Something personal, expensive. I've seen your Instagram. I know what kind of things you wear." I felt sick. It wasn't just blackmail, it was perversion. He wanted my lingerie. My life, my career, everything I had worked for was at his mercy. And the price he demanded was humiliating. I didn't have a choice. I had killed someone, and he knew. So, for months, I complied. Every week, I'd deliver a set of my used lingerie to his apartment. Each time, I hated myself a little more. It wasn't just the act of giving him something so intimate. It was the way he'd look at me when he took it from my hands, like he owned me. I thought about running, but where would I go? I couldn't just leave my life behind. My millions of followers, my brand deals, my image, it was all I had. And if Gerald ever decided to expose me, it would all come crashing down. No one would ever see me as anything other than a murderer. But the shame wasn't the worst part. The worst part was how his demands kept growing. First it was 1 piece a week, then 2. Then he wanted specific pieces. The ones from my most expensive shoots, the ones that cost thousands. It was draining me financially, and each week I felt my control slipping further and further away. I knew I couldn't keep this up forever. I knew I had to stop him. And I found a way. This week was different. This week, I delivered my final set. It was a custom-made, high-end piece from my last big campaign. Delicate lace, hand-stitched with gold accents. Beautiful. But there was something else sewn into the seams. A poison. Tasteless, odorless, lethal. It would absorb through his skin the moment he touched it. The perfect murder. Again. I knocked on his door, just like I always did. Gerald opened it, the same disgusting grin plastered on his face. His eyes gleamed when he saw the lingerie, like he was holding my life in his hands. "Ah, another gift," he said, taking it from me. "You've been very obedient." I smiled, keeping the venom inside. I do what I have to. His fingers brushed against the lace, and I watched, waiting. This time, I felt no guilt. This time, I was in control. As I turned to leave, he stopped me. You know, he said, I've been thinking. Maybe next week we could change the deal. I could... He never finished the sentence. His face contorted, his words choked. He staggered back, his hands clutching his throat. I watched as his skin paled, the poison already working its way through his bloodstream. He gasped, his eyes wide with panic. But I didn't move. I stood there, watching, waiting, as the life drained from his eyes. And just like Zara, it was quick. I stepped over his body as it slumped to the floor, my pulse steady. There was no one to witness this time. No one to leave notes or make demands. I closed the door behind me and walked back to my apartment, feeling lighter than I had in months. No one would ever know. I killed to protect my fame, twice now. But this time, I felt no remorse. Fame has its price, and I was willing to pay it, even if it meant killing again.